The warning was carved into every dock from Nassau to Tortuga: touch the Covenant, and the sea itself will claim you. For 3 years, no pirate had dared. The ship sailed untouched through waters crawling with cutthroats and thieves, protected not by cannons or warships, but by fear itself. Captain Sarah Blackwood stood on a moonlit beach, staring at the silhouette of that forbidden vessel anchored 2 miles offshore. Behind her, 20 hand-picked crew members waited in tense silence, knowing what she was about to propose could get them all killed. "They say she's cursed," her first mate whispered. "Every pirate who's gone near her has vanished without a trace. 12 crews. 300 men. Gone." Sarah turned, her scarred face illuminated by torchlight. "And do you believe in curses, Marcus?" "I believe in 300 dead pirates." "Then believe in this." She pulled out a stolen ledger, its pages marked with official British seals. "The Covenant isn't cursed. She's protected. She's a trap ship, British intelligence's floating prison for anyone stupid enough to attack her. Hidden compartments. Secret soldiers. Mechanisms designed to sink attacking vessels." She let that sink in before continuing. "But I know her secrets. I know how she works. Because I helped design her." Marcus's eyes widened. "You what?" "Before I was a pirate, I was something else. And now we're going to do what no one has survived doing. We're going to board the Covenant, take her cargo, and live to spend it." She smiled darkly. "Who's with me?" 10 years earlier, Sarah Blackwood had been Sarah Morrison, daughter of Britain's most brilliant naval architect. Robert Morrison designed warships for the Royal Navy, creating vessels that dominated the seas and crushed pirate fleets. His workshops in Portsmouth were filled with blueprints, scale models, and innovations that pushed naval warfare into new territories. Sarah had learned at his side, absorbing everything: hull design, cannon placement, weight distribution, defensive mechanisms. By 16, she could sketch a brigantine from memory. By 20, she was contributing designs that impressed even the Admiralty. Then came the commission that would change everything: Project Covenant. "We're tired of losing cargo to pirates," Admiral Hastings had explained in their workshop, his metals gleaming in lamplight. "We need a new approach. Not a warship that scares them away, but a merchant vessel that invites attack, and destroys anyone foolish enough to take the bait." Thus the Covenant was born. On the surface, she looked like a fat merchant ship, slow, vulnerable, tempting. But beneath that disguise, she was a nightmare of hidden traps. Concealed gun ports that opened at the pull of a lever, revealing 18 cannons instead of the 6 visible ones. A false cargo hold with a collapsing floor that dropped boarders into a sealed compartment below the waterline. Hidden soldiers in secret chambers. Emergency mechanisms that could flood attackers' ships with chain-pumped seawater. Sarah had designed half those systems herself. Her father had been proud. Then her father was murdered. A rival architect, jealous of Robert Morrison's success, had arranged an accident at the shipyard. A falling beam. An investigation that went nowhere. Justice that never came because the rival had bought off every official who mattered. Sarah had sought legal recourse and found only closed doors. She'd demanded the Navy investigate and been dismissed as a hysterical woman. She'd tried everything the legitimate world offered and learned a bitter truth: justice was only for those who could afford it. So she'd turned to the illegitimate world. She'd stolen money from her father's accounts, bought passage to the Caribbean, and reinvented herself. Sarah Morrison died. Sarah Blackwood was born, a woman who took what she wanted because asking had gotten her nothing but false sympathy. She'd joined a pirate crew. Proven herself with blade and pistol. Risen through ranks by being smarter, tougher, and more ruthless than the men around her. Within 5 years, she commanded her own ship, the Retribution, with a crew of 40 loyal cutthroats. She'd raided merchant ships, fought Spanish warships, and earned a reputation as one of the Caribbean's most dangerous captains. But she'd never forgotten her past. Never forgotten the blueprints she'd helped draw. When the Covenant had launched and begun her maiden voyages, Sarah had watched from a distance as crew after crew took the bait and vanished. The British spread rumors of curses to mask the truth. Pirates, superstitious by nature, believed them. 12 crews had attacked the Covenant. 12 crews had died, caught in the trap Sarah herself had helped build. Until Marcus, her first mate, had brought her something interesting, a British officer's ledger, stolen from a captured courier ship. The ledger contained shipping schedules, cargo manifests, and one critical piece of information, the Covenant's next route and what she'd be carrying. 50,000 pounds in gold. Diamonds from India. Art treasures bound for London. A fortune beyond imagining, all protected by a ship designed to be unbeatable. But Sarah knew the ship's every secret, every mechanism, every weakness. The hunter had become the hunted. And this time, Sarah was going to win. "You're insane," Marcus said flatly, studying the sketches Sarah had drawn from memory. "These mechanisms, if half of what you're saying is true, will be dead before we even board her." Sarah sat at the table in her cabin aboard the Retribution, surrounded by diagrams and notes. Her crew's senior members, Marcus, the first mate, William, the quartermaster, Chen, the master gunner, and Rebecca, the sailing master, all stared at her with varying degrees of skepticism. "If we attack like normal pirates, yes, we'll die," Sarah agreed. "The Covenant is designed to defeat conventional boarding tactics. That's why we won't use them." She pointed to her drawings. "The ship has 3 primary defense mechanisms. First, hidden cannons. When attacked, panels on both sides drop down, revealing 9 additional guns per side. They'll blast any ship trying to come alongside. So we can't approach," William said. "We can't approach as enemies," Sarah corrected. Second mechanism, the false cargo hold. Any pirates who do make it aboard and break into what they think is the treasure hold will fall through a collapsing floor into a sealed chamber. The chamber then fills with seawater pumped from below. Drowning trap. Rebecca grimaced. "Lovely. And the third?" Hidden soldiers. The Covenant carries 50 Marines concealed in modified compartments below deck. They wait until attackers are aboard, then emerge and slaughter them from behind. The cabin fell silent. Finally, Chen spoke, his English heavily accented. "This ship cannot be taken. You bring us suicide mission." "I'm bringing you the score of a lifetime," Sarah countered. "Because I know how to disable every single one of those defenses, from the inside." She pulled out a British naval uniform she'd acquired. "The Covenant makes scheduled stops at friendly ports to resupply. According to that ledger, she's stopping at Port Augustine in 3 days. We'll be there first. I'll go aboard disguised as a naval inspector, claiming I'm conducting routine checks on defensive systems. They'll believe me because I'll know everything about the ship, because I designed it. Once aboard, I'll sabotage the key mechanisms." "And then?" Marcus asked. "Then, 2 days later when they're at sea again, we attack. The hidden cannons won't deploy because I'll have disabled the release mechanism. The trap hold won't collapse because I'll have secured the supports. And those 50 Marines will be locked in their compartments because I'll have jammed the access doors from the outside." She leaned forward. "We'll come alongside, board her, and face only the 30-man skeleton crew that's visible. We'll overwhelm them, take the treasure, and escape before the British even understand what happened." William shook his head slowly. "You're betting all our lives that you can sabotage a British trapship without being caught." "I'm betting my life," Sarah said quietly. "If I'm caught during the sabotage, I'll be hanged as a pirate and traitor. You'll all be safe, I'll die before revealing I'm working with a crew. But if I succeed, we'll take 50,000 pounds and live like kings." She looked each of them in the eye. I know this ship better than the men who sail her. I know her secrets, her weaknesses, her blind spots. My father and I poured 2 years into designing her. The British think she's unbeatable. But they forgot about the one person who knows how to dismantle her. Marcus finally nodded. Madness. But that's why we follow you, Captain. When do we sail? Immediately, Sarah said, rolling up her diagrams. We've got 3 days to reach Port Augustine before the Covenant does. And if something goes wrong? Rebecca asked. Sarah's smile was cold. Then you'll need a new captain. Port Augustine was a pleasant colonial town of white buildings and palm-lined streets, utterly loyal to the British Crown. Sarah walked its docks wearing a stolen naval uniform, forged papers in her pocket, and a confidence built on intimate knowledge. The Covenant had arrived that morning, exactly on schedule. She sat at anchor in the harbor, her crew busy with resupply operations. To anyone watching, she looked like exactly what she pretended to be, a moderately armed merchant vessel carrying routine cargo. Sarah approached the duty officer at the dock, a young lieutenant who looked bored with his assignment. Lieutenant Morrison, Naval Architecture Division, Sarah said crisply, handing over her forged papers. I'm here to conduct post-commission inspections on the Covenant's defensive systems. The lieutenant scanned the papers, official-looking documents Sarah had painstakingly created, complete with fake seals and signatures. I wasn't informed of any inspection. That's the point of surprise inspections, Lieutenant, Sarah said with just enough condescension. I need to verify all mechanisms are functioning as designed. It'll take 2 hours. Please arrange transportation to the vessel. The lieutenant, unwilling to argue with what appeared to be legitimate authority, arranged a boat. 20 minutes later, Sarah was climbing aboard the Covenant, her heart pounding but her expression perfectly calm. Captain Edmund Price met her on deck, a stern man in his 50s with gray hair and suspicious eyes. Inspector Morrison, I must protest. My ship is in perfect order and this interruption is required by Admiralty regulations, Sarah interrupted smoothly. I'm sure your vessel is exemplary, Captain. This won't take long. I simply need to verify the special defense mechanisms are properly maintained. Price's suspicion warred with Protocol. Protocol 1. Very well. My quartermaster will escort you. That won't be necessary. These systems are classified. I'll inspect them myself. She softened slightly. Admiralty orders, Captain. I'm sure you understand the sensitivity. Grudgingly, Price agreed. He couldn't very well insist on observing top-secret mechanisms himself. Sarah descended below deck, every step familiar. She'd walked these passages in blueprint form 100 times. Now, walking them in reality, she felt a strange mix of pride and betrayal. This ship was her creation, and she was about to sabotage it. First stop, the hidden cannon mechanism. She found the central release lever exactly where she'd designed it to be, concealed behind a false panel in the gun deck. The lever, when pulled, would drop the concealing panels and expose the additional cannons. Sarah pulled a small file from her coat and spent 3 minutes subtly damaging the lever's connection rod. Not obviously broken, just stressed enough that it would fail under pressure. When someone tried to deploy those cannons, the lever would pull free without engaging the mechanism. Second, the trap hold. She descended into the cargo area and located the supports beneath the false floor. These were designed to collapse when weight accumulated above, dropping attackers into the chamber below. She wedged small metal pins into the support joints, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. The floor would now hold firm even under the weight of boarding pirates. Third, the marine compartments. The hidden soldiers were housed in modified spaces accessible through disguised hatches. Sarah found each hatch and, using a thin metal strip, jammed the external sliding bolts. They could still be opened from outside with significant force, but from inside, the Marines would be trapped. 90 minutes after boarding, Sarah emerged on deck and nodded to Captain Price. "Everything appears satisfactory, Captain. Maintain current protocols." She departed the Covenant, returned to shore, and walked calmly back to her crew. Once out of sight, her hands began shaking. She'd just sabotaged British military property and walked away clean. Now came the hard part, the attack itself. 2 days later, 30 miles from Port Augustine in open water, the Retribution approached the Covenant under false colors, flying a Dutch merchant flag and signaling distress. Sarah watched through her spyglass as the trap ship slowed, her crew clearly debating whether to render aid. The Covenant was designed to attract attackers, but even her captain would be cautious about approaching another vessel in pirate-infested waters. Finally, good naval manners won. The Covenant came about, moving to within hailing distance. "What's your distress?" Captain Price called across the water. "Rudder damage." Sarah shouted back, wearing a merchant captain's coat over her pirate clothes. "We need assistance with repairs." The Covenant came closer. Closer. Within 50 yards. Then Sarah dropped the act. "Now." The Dutch flag came down. The black flag went up. The Retribution's gun ports opened, revealing her full armament. And 40 pirates appeared on deck, weapons ready, howling like demons. Aboard the Covenant, Captain Price's face went white. Then red with fury. "It's a trick. Battle stations. Deploy the cannons." His crew scrambled to the hidden mechanism. An officer grabbed the disguised lever and pulled hard. The lever came off in his hand, broken and useless. The hidden gun ports remained closed. "Malfunction," the officer screamed. "The panels won't drop." Price's face shifted from fury to confusion to the first hint of fear. But he rallied quickly. "Prepare to repel boarders. Open the marine compartments." Below deck, soldiers tried to push open their concealed hatches. The hatches rattled but held firm, jammed by Sarah's metal strips. "We're locked in," came muffled shouts from below. "The doors won't open." Now real fear crossed Price's face. His trap mechanisms were failing. But he still had 30 good sailors on deck, and naval discipline. "Fix bayonets. Form defensive line. They're just pirates, we'll cut them down." The Retribution crashed alongside the Covenant. Grappling hooks flew. Boarding planks slammed down. And Sarah's crew attacked. She led the charge herself, twin pistols firing, cutlass gleaming. Her first shot took the Covenant's quartermaster through the shoulder. Her second dropped a sailor aiming a musket at Marcus. Then she was across the gap, boots hitting the Covenant's deck, blades swinging. A British sailor lunged at her with a bayonet, she parried, riposted, and he fell bleeding. Another came from her left, Marcus's blade intercepted him. The deck became chaos. Pirates fought sailors in brutal close combat. Chen, the master gunner, wielded 2 boarding axes like a berserker. Rebecca fought with twin cutlasses, covering William's back as he pressed forward. Captain Price, to his credit, fought with his crew. His saber was quick and skilled, dropping 2 pirates before Marcus engaged him. They dueled across the quarterdeck, officers' precision against pirates' brutality. But the numbers were against the British. 40 attackers against 30 defenders, and the defenders' advantages had been sabotaged. Sarah fought her way to the cargo hold access, knowing the real prize lay below. 3 sailors tried to stop her, all 3 fell to her blade and pistol work. She kicked open the cargo hold door and descended. The false floor held firm beneath her feet, the trap disabled. Below this floor, the treasure waited. Marcus. Chen. Get down here, she shouted. The gold's below this deck. Her crew poured into the hold, finding the concealed latches Sarah had described. They opened the hidden compartments, and golden light blazed up at them. Chests of coins. Boxes of diamonds. Wrapped paintings worth fortunes. Everything the ledger had promised, and more. Above them, the battle was ending. The British sailors, realizing they were beaten, began to surrender. Sarah had done it. She'd beaten the unbeatable ship. An hour later, the Covenant was secured, her surviving crew bound and confined, her treasure being transferred to the Retribution. Sarah stood on the quarterdeck, watching her crew work with efficient precision. 50,000 pounds in gold. Diamonds. Art. A fortune beyond any pirate's wildest dreams, split among 40 people. Captain Price sat nearby, his hands bound, his face a mask of bitter defeat. "You knew," he said quietly. "You knew everything about this ship." "How?" Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Then she made a decision. "Because I helped design her. 10 years ago, when I was someone else." Price's eyes widened. "Morrison. Sarah Morrison. Robert Morrison's daughter. But you're supposed to be, dead? Respectable? Married to some lord and hosting tea parties?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "That's what happens to well-bred young ladies, isn't it? Except my father was murdered, justice was denied, and I learned that the legitimate world only serves those already in power." She knelt to his level. This ship was supposed to be unbeatable. A trap that would devour any pirate stupid enough to attack her. And she would have been, if the person who designed her hadn't become the very thing she was meant to destroy. Price looked at her with something between respect and horror. "You've committed treason. The Navy will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Let them try." Sarah stood. "They'll be looking for the Covenant and finding nothing. You're going to tell them she was attacked by a massive pirate fleet, 20 ships, overwhelming force. You fought bravely but were outnumbered. And the pirates who did this? They sailed away into the Caribbean and vanished like ghosts. Why would I lie for you?" Sarah's smile was cold. "Because I'm giving you a choice. Tell that story, and I'll leave you and your crew on the nearest friendly island with supplies and a boat. You'll lose your ship, but you'll live. You'll have failed, but not through cowardice or incompetence, through impossible odds. The Admiralty might even give you another command someday." She leaned closer. "Or refuse, and I'll kill every man here and sink the Covenant with all hands. The Navy will think she simply vanished, another mysterious loss at sea. Your wife will wonder what happened to you. Your children will grow up without knowing if you died bravely or drowned screaming." Price swallowed hard. "You'd murder 30 men in cold blood?" "I'd rather not. But I've come too far to let honor get me hanged." Sarah straightened. "Choose, Captain. Lie and live, or hold to truth and die." The silence stretched out. Finally, Price nodded. 20 ships. Overwhelming force. We fought bravely. Good man, Sarah said. And she meant it. By sunset, the treasure was transferred. The British crew was bound but unharmed in the Covenant's boats with enough supplies to reach land. Captain Price would tell his story, and the Navy would believe it because the alternative, that one pirate crew had systematically disabled and captured their trap ship, was too humiliating to accept. The Retribution sailed away, leaving the Covenant empty and drifting. Sarah stood at her helm, feeling the weight of what she'd done. She'd beaten the ship she'd helped create. She'd avenged her father in the only way available to her. She'd won. But as she looked at her celebrating crew, she felt something unexpected: emptiness. The victory was real. The gold was real. But her father was still dead. And she was still a pirate, forever outside the world she'd once belonged to. Some prices couldn't be paid with gold. 3 months after the Covenant heist, Sarah Blackwood walked into a Portsmouth tavern wearing a merchant's daughter's dress and a false name. Across the table sat Admiral Hastings, older now, grayer, but still wearing those polished medals. "You wanted to meet?" he said suspiciously. "My aide said you had information about the Covenant attack." Sarah smiled and slid an envelope across the table. Inside, detailed designs for a new naval trap ship, addressing every weakness the Covenant had shown. Innovations that would make the next version truly unbeatable. "Who are you?" Hastings demanded. "Someone who knows ships," Sarah said. "Someone who could design something better than the Covenant. Someone who's willing to sell those designs to the Navy, for the right price." She leaned forward. £10,000. And a full pardon for Sarah Blackwood and her crew. Hastings's face went pale. "You're someone making a business proposition," Sarah interrupted. "You want to stop pirates? I know how they think because I am one. Hire me to design your defenses, and I'll make your ships unbeatable. Refuse, and I'll sell these designs to the Spanish. Either way, I win." Hastings stared at her for a long moment. Then he took the envelope. "You're a traitor and a thief." "I'm a businesswoman," Sarah corrected. "Just like you're a pragmatist. The question is, do you want to catch me, or do you want to stop losing ships?" 6 weeks later, Sarah Blackwood received a royal pardon and a contract to consult on naval architecture. She'd beaten the system by becoming too valuable to destroy. Some victories, she'd learned, weren't won with cannons and cutlasses. They were won by knowing the rules better than those who made them, and breaking them at precisely the right moment. Because sometimes, the only way to win is to become the very thing they fear most.